Welcome, everybody. June Town Hall, very happy to see you. For those of you who I have not met, I'm Maggie. I'm the founding community product manager for DataHub. We have a lot of exciting stuff to share with you today, so we can go ahead and get started here. So let's see here. All right,
Okay.
Miko, if you could just move the slides along as we go. So welcome, folks. We are joined by Nathan and Francis from HashiCorp today. We will hear from them a little bit through the session. Miko, if you can go to the next slide, please. All right, so I'm going to take over for Miko today. We're just all collectively having some internet issues, so that's nice and fun. But I will kind of work us through our announcements and updates. I'll also get us through our project updates and roadmap announcements there. Herschel's going to join us to give us a deep dive on some recent improvements we've made to our ingestion framework. And then, like I said, we will be hearing from the HashiCorp team, talking about how they are empowering their analysts with DataHub. All right, so let's talk DataHub community updates. Miko, next slide, please. So in Slack, we always like to take a quick look at how things are going in the DataHub community. In Slack, we have over 11,245 members. I updated this yesterday. I'm sure it's closer. I'm sure we've had another 25 people join since then. Community is always buzzing. We have 829 weekly active users, which is consistent with the months we've seen prior. A little bit of a dip in the number of messages posted, around 3,000. It's summertime. We see this every year. So cool. Thank you, Shashanka.
Go ahead, Maggie. Shashanka is going to share.
Okay, appreciate it. So yeah, we do see a little bit of a dip in the summer months. People take time off, spend time outside, spend time with family. We love to see it. Next slide, Shashanka. Miko, while I have you, if you could take a look at the LinkedIn live stream, see what's happening there, that'd be helpful.
On it. Yep.
All right, in terms of our DataHub repo, this is a little bit of a different view. If for folks who have joined in the past, we're just taking a different kind of look at how things are going or kind of how to measure this. But so within our DataHub project, we, despite it being summer and kind of Slack conversations decreasing a little bit, we actually saw an uptick in our GitHub activity. Lots of comments happening on pull requests. We had 160 PRs created, and then separately 139 of them merged across 260 folks contributing to the repo. So it's a tremendous amount of activity and conversation happening in there. We absolutely love to see it. Next slide, Shashanka. In terms of activity in Slack, this is kind of a different view that we're looking at, but a breakdown by channel nonetheless. What we are seeing in our Slack channels is that folks are generally asking questions in our ingestion and then just general troubleshoot channel, which is a great segue into our next slide, where we're going to talk about a tool that we have recently rolled out in Slack called RunLLM. If you are in there, if you are in Slack, you may have seen that we announced this, I believe it was like May 22nd, right there. So RunLLM is a friendly AI bot. It's trained on the DataHub doc site, the actual code base itself, all of our historical GitHub PRs and issues, and then also DataHub Slack threads. So the full history of all of our threads. It's a question answer bot. You can ask it anything related to DataHub. And what we did is we actually enabled this in our ingestion channel. If you remember on the last slide, that's where the bulk of our kind of questions or activity is happening. So it's going to automatically respond when folks post in ingestion. We'll also be doing it and getting started shortly. To try to help resolve questions. In the past, so it's been about a month, a little bit over a month, we've seen it, there's been 1,000 interactions with that bot, either automatically posting or responding to questions, or people actually tagging it and engaging with it. And I'll show you an example of what that looks like. And then in terms of kind of like happiness or accuracy, you have the ability to kind of upvote or downvote the relevance of a response. We're seeing, we saw 85 upvotes, 62 downvotes. Not a great response rate, so we hope to see that kind of coming in there. So all that is to say, we are experimenting with new ways basically to streamline or expedite getting people answers to their questions as quickly as possible. And it's been pretty cool to see it in action. So if we go to the next slide, Shashanka. Oscar is, I don't know if Oscar's on the call, and if you're watching this, thanks for letting me use you as kind of an example here. I noticed this one thread where Oscar had asked a question around creating a custom source, and then it turned into a thread of something like, I think there was like 44 responses, and it was really amazing to kind of witness or kind of see the evolution of the learning process. So started with a question of, how do I create a custom source, to then give me an in-depth explanation of how to populate the metadata change event class. Then what does MySQL do in DataHub architecture? Where is metadata stored? What does DataHub GMS stand for? What's MAE and MAE consumer? So really kind of like seeing Oscar kind of like go through the learning process to ramp up within DataHub. And then last but not least, he asked a question in Italian and it responded in Italian. And for people who are using AI regularly, like that's probably like a duh. Of course, a bot knows different languages, but it blew my mind. Like, I just think it is so freaking cool. And also something that we've seen in the community quite a bit where folks are looking for kind of like translation Slack bots or apps within Slack, so that folks, aren't kind of pressured to write or interact in English if it's not their first language. So I just thought it was so cool to see just kind of this evolution of troubleshooting, learning about the project, and kind of self-guided, and then also other languages. So very cool. So if you're in the DataHub Slack community, if you have questions, please do feel free to engage with RunLLM. We are also extremely excited for feedback on it. We want to make sure that it's something that is actually useful, something that's helping unblock people, and helping us scale. Okay, Miko, sorry, there's...
Mike, before you continue, could you go to
Oh
StreamYard
my
and just
goodness
take off
gracious.
the
Okay,
prompt?
thank you. No
Yeah,
shortage
people can't
of...
see anything.
No
Thank you.
shortage of technical challenges today. All right, so in terms of community shoutouts, let's go to our next slide, please. So speaking of our DataHub Slack community, we have a tremendous amount of wonderful folks in the community who go above and beyond to help other people and either provide their expertise or provide troubleshooting support. So massive shout out to David Schmidt and Gustavo for kind of taking the lead on that over the last month. Also Felix, Patrick, Peter. Those three guys are jumping in, answering questions all over the place, along with all these other wonderful humans. So we genuinely could not build this community without you, and we really, really appreciate the fact that you go above and beyond and help other folks out. Next slide. Speaking of Slack, if you are not in our Slack, here's how you can join us. Slack.datahubproject.io, and we'll see you in there. Next. In terms of events, there's two that we have on a weekly basis. The first one is on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, where it's me and a handful of our core engineers just hanging on Zoom and answering your questions. In the last week, or in this week's session, I think we had about 15 people show up. So it's, kind of first come, first serve. We do breakout rooms. It's really, anything related to DataHub. If you are more of an interactive learner, or you want to kind of dig into the nitty-gritty details of issues that you're seeing, please join us. It's always a good time in there. And then the next one, we have what we're calling DataHub Decoded. So this is on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. These have been hosted by Gabe and Jeff in the past. I'm probably going to be taking the lead on those as well. But this is really a session, if you're brand new to DataHub, if you've never heard of it, we had someone this week who joined us and said he had heard about DataHub 20 minutes prior to the session. So it's genuinely like But then we also had someone who said, hey, we deployed DataHub a couple years ago. We want to reinvigorate it. We want to learn some best practices about how to kind of get users engaged, set people up for success. So it's really a session around getting familiar with the platform, talking about best practices, talking about deploy or kind of rollout strategies, or kind of kind of like user management strategies, et cetera. So join us for those. Both of those are on a weekly basis, and you can find all the details at events.datahubproject.io. Next slide.
Maggie, I have a question on this one. Like, is
Yeah.
governance therapy included as part of the package?
It's really a support group.
Okay.
So it is very therapeutic, and it's a lot of us saying, this is hard, but we're going to figure it out together.
Awesome.
No, it was really, I've been really, really pleased by the conversations that are happening there, and folks that are jumping in to help one another out. It's really great. All right. Let's go to the next slide, please. Let's talk project updates. But before we do that, I have to shamelessly plug that I have a new dog named Nellie, and she is very cute, and I love her very much. If anybody has questions or wants to see her, I love her. She is so great. I will bring her on screen anytime anybody wants. Anyway, let's talk project updates. Next slide. All right, so in June, we merged 162 PRs across 48 contributors. Holy cow. This is, so all of these are going to be leading up to our version 0.13.4. We don't have a firm release date on that yet, but it should be in the next couple of weeks. So massive shout out to our 9 first-time contributors. And as always, we are extremely grateful for our repeat contributors who are keeping this project moving forward. Next slide. All right, so here's a sneak peek of what will be available in this upcoming release. Shashanka, can you hit? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so on the ingestion side of things, ingestion is where, there's just always a ton of activity happening in there. We have some really big improvements to ingestion improvement, or really big ingestion performance improvements for Snowflake. BigQuery, we now are mapping their BigQuery policy tags back to dataset fields level in DataHub. We have some improvements to our lineage extraction for the BigQuery sync connector for Kafka Connect. Then on let's see here. Oh, on the Unity catalog side of things, we're detecting lineage for Hive Metastore with external tables landed in S3, and just some various kind of like automated updates to automated mapping of source tags back to DataHub across those sources. The other thing, we had a community contribution on SageMaker, which now supports stateful ingestion. If you've never heard of stateful ingestion, I believe that Herschel is going to be giving us a little bit of a rundown on all of these terminology things. So more to come in Herschel's session. Next slide, please. On the user experience front, for folks who are familiar with structured properties, we have now extended the support out to all asset types. So originally it was narrowed down to a handful of kind of the core assets. But so now you can append or add structured properties to any of your DataHub assets as you please. In terms of data contracts, we have a brand new UI based workflow where you can create and enforce data contracts within DataHub. I believe Shashanka is going to chat about that a little bit. And then last month, if you were in our session, John announced that we have our new official, our open assertion spec. And so now, along with that, you can actually define data quality rules within DataHub. So you're creating that specification file, upserting it into DataHub, and to kind of view those results. You can then compile and actually schedule them to run within the backend of your choice. So that could be Snowflake or whatever your kind of data storage solution is. And then you can ingest those results back into DataHub. Shashanka, is there anything that you wanted to talk through on that one, or are there different sides for it?
No, I think open assertion spec is something we announced last town hall. It kind of rounds out our set of logical specifications. So we have data product specifications, we have data contract specifications, and now we have an open assertion specification. So that allows you to kind of declare a bunch of logical things, and then have DataHub be your source of truth for those logical specifications. And then on the other side of that repository, you can write transformers or operators that can take those specifications and deploy them out to your backends. In the case of Acrel Observe can be the data quality engine for assertion specifications or contracts, but you can also connect it up to other systems of your choice. So that's kind of the open metadata platform approach that we've taken. Logical specs, register them into the platform, and then translate them out to the backend of your choice. And so we're kind of moving forward on that kind of vision that we set out in the middle of 2023, pretty much. All right.
Awesome.
With that, I will move over and do a quick show and tell of the data contract UI, or is there something else that you wanted to
Do you want to
cover?
do that, or the developer? Let's do developer.
Okay, sounds good.
Experience really quick. So we've had a handful of Neo4j performance improvements. This was a community contribution, I believe, from the Visa team. So big thanks to folks there. Again, on the structured property side of things, we now have support for issuing deletes, and you can also issue breaking changes. David rolled out some support to our MCE consumer throttling. Basically, what this means is if you have a ton of scheduled ingestion jobs running, there's improved throttling so that non-ingestion updates within DataHub will appear with a lower latency despite that larger backlog of ingestion jobs running. And then we also had I think this is Patrick, contributed an update to our support for sending front-end analytics to Google GA4, which is Google Analytics. So if you are tracking kind of front-end activity, like how are people using your DataHub instance, and you're using Google Analytics, you now have support for GA4. I think that's it for me. So Shashanka, I will have you take it away.
Cool. So data contracts, something we've kind of talked about for a while. We've also had the data contract CLI out in the repository for a long time. DataHub as a storage layer supported storing data contracts, but was not yet available in the UI. I'm really excited to share that it's now available, and it will be fully available as part of the upcoming release. What does that look like? I'm not going to do a big, long demo. It's really a quick sneak peek of what it looks like. So this is, DataHub running locally for me. I've got my usual sample Hive data set with its schema and a bunch of assertions. Maybe some assertions are running on great expectations and some assertions are running on DBT tests. But we don't discriminate. They're all well-behaved assertions, and they can all be part of data contracts. So this particular table has a data contract, and apparently it's meeting the contract because one of these assertions is in that list and it's passing, and you can actually edit it. And if there are other assertions that you want to include in it, you can include that. And if you go over to the assertions area, you'll see that both of these assertions are marked as being part of the data contract. As you know, this also works with the data contract YAML spec, so you can upload the data contract YAML, and it'll show up here as well. And once assertions start running and succeeding or failing, the contract status gets updated. So here's an example of a table which has a contract, but we haven't yet received results from the expectations or the assertions that have been defined. As a result, it's marked as pending implementation. So once the results start coming in, then you get a solid yes or no result on that data contract. And what that means is, obviously, you can have programmatic integrations to this as well. You can essentially have a downstream pipeline not run if the data contract is being violated. And using that, you can essentially ensure that your data pipelines are never processing data that has violations in important assertions, which is what our data contract implementation is about. So that's data contracts, and that's, I guess, brings us to the end of project updates. But if you've been following what's hot and new in the industry, guess what? catalogs are everywhere. In June, I think, early June, part of Snowflake Summit, Snowflake announced Polaris catalog, an open source catalog for Apache Iceberg. And then just a week later, Databricks announced Unity Catalog again, as in the open source version of Unity Catalog, billed as the industry's only universal catalog for data and AI. Big words. And then we also found a few other data lake vendors, OneHouse in particular, talking about syncing to all the catalogs that ever existed or will exist in the future by offering interoperability between all of these different catalogs. My good friend, Chris Riccomini, who actually spends a lot of time covering the data industry, isn't able to keep up with this news anymore. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and we'll break it down for you soon. It apparently seems like the catalog word is very popular. A lot of people are software is being called as a catalog, and I think there's a lot of difference between what a table catalog or a data lake catalog does and what kind of a broader catalog like DataHub does. And so I think it's very interesting to look at kind of the labeling around a lot of these projects and also the capabilities. I think we are going to be putting out some sort of a comparison of the different catalogs, how they work well with each other, how folks should be thinking about them with respect to the overall data stack, and how these catalogs actually help you govern data better together. And that's kind of the vision we are moving towards. So stay tuned for that, and curious to hear from you. Please let us know if you're playing around with any of these technologies and have some early impressions. We, of course, will be doing a more detailed breakdown soon. So stay tuned for that. Cool. With that, back to you, Maggie.
All right. So we're coming into July. How this year how does time work? I don't understand how we're already here, but we are here, and that's exciting. I was hoping that we would have a Q3 roadmap to share with you today. We need a little bit more time to button it up. Want to make sure that it's relevant and actionable. So keep an eye out. I will be sure to share out our details. I'll probably do like a recorded walkthrough or a Loom to share it with the community. So keep an eye out on Slack, and also probably send it out through our newsletter. But we will have our open source roadmap coming for you very soon. I believe it's time for Mr. Herschel. Is that correct?
Yep. Just a quick update on the roadmap itself. If you don't know, we have maintained a public-facing request portal called featurerequests.datahubproject.io. We're actually going through and marking a lot of those items as done because we actually got them done. So you'll see a lot of movement on feature requests as we kind of go through some of that backlog and mark items that we've already shipped done, and then move new items into planned or in review state. So keep an eye out on that. If you don't know where that lives, Maggie can give you the details. Of course, it's linked out from our homepage. So featurerequests.datahubproject.io is where we share our public roadmap, and we keep things moving on those bigger items. And of course, GitHub issues and PRs is where you'll find us as a code contributor. We are also planning some cleanup activities there, and kind of planning to do a larger kind of revamp of our PR intake and contribution strategy as well. So lots of good news coming to the open source project in terms of our presence and activity in the project in the upcoming months. So I'm excited for that.
Absolutely. All right. It is now time for Herschel to join us to give us a deep dive into our ingestion, recent improvements to our ingestion platform, and a little bit of a background on what are we even talking about when we're talking about DataHub ingestion. So Herschel, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Maggie. Yeah, so probably the first thing you're wondering if you heard that slide title is, what even is ingestion? What are we talking about here? What is the scope of it? So narrowly defined, it's all about pulling metadata into DataHub. Metadata, of course, you can break that word down into kind of all its constituent parts. It includes, documentation, ownership, properties about, any assets that you have within your data ecosystem, but also their lineage and their usage and kind of how they relate to other things within that. And of course, this applies to, databases, tables, views, as well as from BI tools like charts and dashboards. If you've got transformations, we've got like DAGs and pipelines and tasks. If you've got ML tools, there's models. We model all of these concepts in DataHub. And as part of that, the ingestion framework needs to be responsible for producing them. And more broadly, though, the framework is also responsible for some of the push-based integrations that we have. So with Airflow, and Dagster, and Great Expectations, you can actually configure them to run on task run or whenever a Great Expectations suite is run, and push those results into DataHub. And you can also use our SDKs to, if you're using a custom source or you have some Excel sheet somewhere that has a little bit of extra information that you want to enrich into your catalog, into the DataHub catalog, you can use the SDK for that. And then also a CLI, which includes not just like the DataHub ingest command, but also DataHub dataset, DataHub data contract, all of these kind of tools that we've built out to make it easy to interact with the UI with the backend in a programmatic way, both from the CLI as well as via Python code more programmatically. So ingestion is pretty broad. And, like some of the numbers here kind of blow my mind. We got 70 integrations at this point. 1.5 million downloads a month of the actual DataHub package, which is the Python package that we released. I think like the stats daily kind of like 1.5 million is kind of hard to understand. It's like 70,000 yesterday, which is just an absurd number. PyPy, which is the Python package registry, actually designated it as a critical package for the Python ecosystem, which is kind of fun. People are using it to ingest 1.8 billion MCPs. Those are basically like little nuggets of metadata that the framework generates. 1.8 billion every month. And that number is steadily going up. We've got 250 releases, 200,000 lines of code, and a decent ratio of tests and comments, but can always be improved. And of course, this is like a big group effort. Got 3,000 commits from 300 unique contributors over hundreds of different organizations. Ingestion represents kind of half of the DataHub commits, and the majority of external contributions that we get tend to be to ingestion. So it's quite cool. And I do want to make sure to highlight, this is the work of the Acro team and very many other teams. And it's been fantastic collaborating with other folks within the community to build this framework out. And we get contributions both to the core, to the CLI, to the specific ingestion sources, to the test frameworks. Like people are building like very meaningful and massive contributions, and a heartfelt thank you for that. The eagle-eyed among you might have noticed 250 releases, but Acro DataHub has only had 85 releases. And I'd be a little surprised that you knew the 85 number off the top of your head, but also you'd be right. We do 2 different releases. The DataHub backend server release, we'll kind of use those terms interchangeably. Those will have 3-digit version numbers. And then the CLI ingestion framework, or Acro DataHub, This is the Python package that will have 4-digit version numbers, and these will get incremented in lockstep. So, for example, 0.13.3.1 will work with 0.13.3 as the backend release. But, we almost never make backwards incompatible changes to our APIs and our models. So, if you really wanted to use 0.8. something, like you could, and it would work. It would be able to send metadata to 0.13.3 just fine. Of course, we're making improvements to the DataHub ingestion framework, like, almost every single day. And we release very frequently. And the reason is people want to get their hands on the latest and greatest for their connectors. And so that release cadence represents kind of the rate of changes within ingestion. And so we definitely recommend upgrading whenever things are available. Now, how do we think about ingestion from like a component perspective? I've kind of touched on this a little bit. The SDK in particular, I'd kind of break up into 3 different pieces. There's the core models. These are the models that, so DataHub as a whole is schema driven. All of the metadata modeling that happens is done in a language called PDL, and then we generate schemas both for Java and for Python, or generate classes both Java and Python to be able to operate on those schemas. And of course, there's also like an Avro specification that we generate here as well. And so this makes it really easy to interact with DataHub while using native Python objects. So you don't really need knowledge of like the nitty gritty of how to construct API requests. You can kind of operate at a slightly higher layer. And to that end, we also don't want you writing manual API requests. So we have the DataHub Graph API client that has a bunch of methods. You can like get ownership, get tags, search for entities, get earns, like put metadata back into DataHub, get profiling data, all sorts of things using the API client. And then also part of the SDK would be our SQL parser. It's built on top of SQL Glot and also adds quite a bit more to make it schema aware, operate with DataHub seamlessly, and also fixes or improves stability of the parser so that it doesn't just like cause your entire, like cause Python to hang or like run out of memory or things like that. So it has some protections around those. As far as ingestion pipelines, there's quite a bit that the framework takes care of, but broadly it's sources generate metadata, thinks push them into DataHub, and transformers make tweaks as it moves along. And we'll be talking a little bit about kind of what are some of the common things that the ingestion pipeline also takes care of. And then outside of the push-based ingestion framework, there's also some of those pull-based integrations. We also generate documentation automatically for every single source. There's quite a bit to the framework as a whole. Now, when we're building these connectors, what do we actually care about? Obviously correctness is the most important thing, but then, we want to make sure that you can run it stably. And that means we don't use way too much memory. It runs reasonably fast. It doesn't just like use a ton of CPU without needing to. The least important thing is disk utilization. If we can trade memory utilization for disk utilization, that almost always is a good trade-off in our mind. And so the entire framework has kind of been optimized for these things in order. And now I'll dive kind of more into some more technical anecdotes about problems that we faced, how we overcame them, and And hopefully this will kind of give you a sense for what are some of the interesting problems that we're working on here, and how are we actually pushing the connectors to be the best that they can, and kind of probably the best out there. So as Maggie alluded to, one of the things we built is stateful ingestion. So the problem statement was, how do you detect when something gets deleted? Let's say you're integrating with Looker. Looker doesn't necessarily tell you when a chart or a look is deleted. So how do we make sure that we don't have stale metadata in the catalog? The solution that we have is, we know what we generated last time we ran ingestion. We know what we generated this time. Whatever disappeared between that, we can, safely assume got deleted between the 2 runs. And so we can mark it as soft deleted. And then, of course, there's some state management here to make sure that, the new state actually gets stored, and we actually store that back into DataHub. And then, there's also some additional capabilities, like if you previously ran successfully and then a run failed, we'll actually combine the old state with the new state and produce a new one, so that we guarantee that things that were produced 2 runs ago and got deleted still get deleted on the next successful run. There's also some safety checks and things. But broadly, this has worked quite well for us. This has been in the framework for a year, for 2 years almost at this point. Another thing that we've run into is how to limit memory utilization. So most of our sources are built in a almost streaming fashion. It's like in-process streaming is the way I would describe it. So what that means is we pull a bunch of metadata from, let's say it's BigQuery. We'll pull the list of columns for a given table. And then we will immediately try to push that into DataHub. And then once it's pushed in, we can kind of forget about that list of columns. The Python framework doesn't need to keep that information in memory. And so that works great for a lot of things. There are a couple places where that breaks down. But the caveat there is there are some places where we need all of the information available in order to do the computation that we need to do. And so that's where this first concept, which is the file back dictionary. This is a dictionary-like object in Python. It implements exactly the same interface, or almost exactly the same interface, except the data that it stores is stored in SQLite under the hood. It serializes with Pickle, which is the Python, a Python serialization library. And then it has a bunch of things that we've added to keep performance, keep it responsive. It keeps an internal buffer and then batches the writes down to SQLite. It has a bunch of sophisticated logic around when it flushes that cache. It averages about 40 microseconds per read operation, and write operations are a little bit slower, but similar order of magnitude there. And so that's fast enough that for almost all practical purposes, you could just replace a dictionary with a file backdict, and things will magically reduce their memory utilization. The other neat thing about it is you can also run SQL queries over your dictionary because it's stored in SQLite. And so there's some interesting capabilities that you get because of that to do aggregations and things. And we already use this as part of our warehouse lineage and usage sources across at least 3 or 4 different sources to kind of limit the memory use. The other thing that we do is we care about wall clock time. And so we'll parallelize for the sources that are network bound, as in they make an API request, they wait for 100 milliseconds, they return the data back. 100 milliseconds is really slow when CPUs run at like gigahertz. So sitting idle for that and just waiting for a response is just like doesn't make a lot of sense. So we'll make multiple API calls in parallel to speed things up. Looker and recently Snowflake schema ingestion both do this, and they've both seen like fairly large wall clock time speedups. And CPU utilization for both of these also tends not to be, at 100%. So we could actually crank the dial up even more, but unfortunately, we just like the source systems tend to be, have rate limits and things, and so we're pushing it up against their limits. But the framework is not inducing any limits to the speed of the run. Of course, parallelization, because a lot of the way it's built is like very stream oriented, parallelism can cause some issues with back pressure. And so there's a full back pressure management subsystem within the ingestion framework. So what do I mean by back pressure? If the ingestion sink can't keep up with the ingestion source, as in the source, let's say the source is like a file source, and then we're just writing it to a DataHub using the DataHub REST sink. The sink will be a lot slower than the file source. And so the sink will kind of not be able to keep up with the volume that it's getting. And so the things that the source produces will build up in memory. And this is a case where we don't really need to keep all of these things in memory. What we really should be doing is pausing processing of the source until the sink is ready to accept new requests. And so that's exactly what we do. We use Python generators to actually pause the source, like, freeze the stack, freeze all the variables, stop execution until the sink is ready to accept more metadata, and then we'll resume the source. And
Hey,
of course, if you
sorry, Herschel, just one second, but we're getting real close on time, so just wanted to we might need to skip our demo.
Yeah, that sounds good. So what we've done, we added a fixed size queue here. And then for the thread executors, we actually also have like a executor that is back pressure aware, a variant of the thread pool executor in Python, so that we can manage this back pressure and pause the thread executions as well. We also added a batch endpoint to the REST sink so that we can kind of push metadata out. The flow here was, initially the REST sink was like single threaded, produced 10 events per second. We added multi-threading, that got us up to 100. And then now we added a batch endpoint that automatically batches the stream and pushes them out. That runs 10x faster. And so the sink almost never is the bottleneck these days. It's actually, we almost can't saturate the sink's full throughput because serializing our objects to JSON is too slow. So there's always always more things to do with performance, but that hopefully gives you a taste for some of the things we're working on at the framework level. And then, of course, there's a bunch of other things that we're working on to improve performance as well. Anyway, I see there's a hand raised. Maybe in interest of time, if you could drop your message in chat, and I'll take a look at it there. But yeah, with that, I will hand it back over to you, ma'am.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And sorry, I had to jump in there, Herschel. Let me remove your spotlight. I don't know how to do that. All right, we are going to, the one thing I wanted to call out on the ingestion kind of improvement side of things, we see questions from the community about this across the board, right? The reason we're in this space is because the data ecosystem is so vast and so complex. And so it really is paramount importance for the project or for the system to be able to process all of this at scale. So, kind of job security a little bit, right? There's always going to be ways that we need to make improvements there, but really appreciate you giving a deep dive on that, Herschel. All right, we are turning the corner in our last session. I'm going to welcome to the stage our friends Nathan and Francis from HashiCorp. And I will have you all take it away.
I'm good. I'll go ahead and share the slides. Okay, cool. Is everyone able to see this?
Yes, sir. We're all good to go.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, for the sake of time, we'll try to move fast. But yeah, really excited to be able to speak at DataHub Town Hall this month. Yeah, thanks for inviting us to speak here. So this June, or I guess going on the end of June, will mark roughly around the 9-month point since we've adopted DataHub here at HashiCorp. So we just wanted to share how that's been going and what the adoption journey has looked like for us. So just real quick, just about us, just who we are. So HashiCorp is the infrastructure cloud company. So we enable practitioners to do cloud right by just providing tools to automate cloud provisioning and management through infrastructure lifecycle management and security lifecycle management. Some of the popular tools are Terraform and Vault. So anything to do with working in cloud, provisioning in cloud, that is what HashiCorp does. And then within HashiCorp, me and Francis, we are a part of the enterprise data analytics team that sits within the overall data engineering org. And our analytics team is responsible for enabling our business partners and stakeholders across HashiCorp to get access to the data and analytics platforms that they need. We're the owners for the majority of these tools, which is why having a centralized data catalog was extremely appealing for us. So then just going into our stack a little bit. So we manage ELT through a mix of Fivetran and custom builds, largely through Python. And Snowflake is our primary cloud data warehouse. For transformations and orchestration, we use dbt. And then for analytics and BI, we use Tableau and Sigma. So there's more details on the chart over to the right. I know it's a little bit small, but that's kind of how it all works together for us. And then that brings us to DataHub, which has been a data dictionary solution that we've adopted for handling data governance and data transparency. And then, yeah, just again, as the analytics org, just having this available to us was extremely important. And then, so just wanted to touch upon real quick of why we chose DataHub. I think the slide must have gotten removed. But essentially, yeah, we're just hoping to have a data dictionary available for us that would be able to just improve data transparency for the organization. Just for different analysts and engineers to just be able to have visibility into what's available at HashiCorp. And specifically for DataHub, what was appealing for us was one, that it was open source, that it was constantly being contributed to. Two, that it had integration with a lot of the primary platforms that we're using, as well as just the good reputation it had out there during that time before, as Shashanka mentioned, before the explosion.
Hey, Nathan?
Hello?
Go ahead to the next slide. Go to
Okay.
the next slide. Yep, go to the next slide.
Okay.
It should be, all right.
Okay. No, yeah. So this was the slide I was mentioning, but yeah, just the reputation of DataHub amidst the many catalog options out there. That was one of the big benefits for us. And then, so yeah, just continuing to go into how DataHub was beneficial for us. So one of the main challenges that we saw at HashiCorp was, as a new analyst, it's difficult to understand what data and analytics are available and who owns them. That's kind of the title of, I guess, our talk here for HashiCorp. Yeah, this was from personal experience as well. But yeah, there was just some difficulty in just being able to understand the data analytics that were available across the organization. For me to just come in and just understand this team is in charge of this segment of analytics versus this team is in charge of this. A lot of those would have to come through ad hoc conversations, and there was often the documentation for this the data and analytics were in disparate locations. So we wanted to just address this problem through having a centralized data catalog through DataHub. Yeah, so just here are the points again. Just visibility was limited for the data sources and analytics available. And then there was often just a lot of time spent just raising different questions and going to different rabbit holes of just trying to understand the data and analytics that was available once you did find something that was there. So then this was the challenge that we're hoping to address. And this was kind of the lens that we took as we were implementing DataHub. Okay, yeah, so we touched upon this slide already. So then in terms of the implementation itself, pretty basic, but we just wanted to make sure that for the primary platforms that we had, that we were able to get that within DataHub. So we were pleased to find that Tableau, dbt, and Snowflake were already there when we first started looking into DataHub. And since then, since we've adopted DataHub, we're really pleased to see DataHub working to include Fivetran as well as Sigma into there as well. So then this is really big for us, just being able to have a wholesale view of the data landscape here at HashiCorp was really beneficial for us, just from a basic data catalog standpoint. And then so the next area that we hope to address through DataHub was this whole aspect of ownership. So here's just a funny GIF that's kind of relatable, just pointing to who owns what. Yeah, but anyways, so from the get-go, the way that we addressed this was we went to go and define what ownership meant and what different types of ownership there were. So this isn't necessarily specific to DataHub, but this was really important for us as we were implementing it. So who is responsible for business logic? Who is responsible for the ingestion of data set? These were the types of questions that we sought to address by assigning proper ownership for analytics and data across the org. And then next, through DataHub, we made sure to just document everything. Who is the proper owner for this subset of data? Who is the proper owner for this actual piece of analytics? And then through that process, we wanted to save time by doing so, by implementing transformers for a lot of the different data that we're using. And by tackling ownership this way, we've been able to streamline the experience of an analyst, trying to just look out to see who the right person is in order to ask these different types of questions. If we just refer to the previous challenge, yeah. And then relatedly, documentation. So similarly with ownership, we wanted to have the right people to ask and reduce time spent on trying to go through a lot of those Slack conversations, email chains, etc. But then we also wanted to save time for an onboarding analyst by just providing self-service documentation. So we were really pleased that there was an existing integration with DBT docs. So whatever documentation was already generated through DBT would automatically materialize within DataHub, as well as during the course of just developing DataHub for our org, starting to leverage the Python SDK to write programmatic updates to other non-DBT data assets within DataHub. So these are just some of the ways that we've been trying to provide centralize and provide more documentation to the analysts and stakeholders across the organization, so that someone with a question would just be able to hop in and just get those questions answered right from the get-go. And then just summarizing some of the impact that we've experienced since implementing DataHub. So just for us, our analytics and data engineering teams, just previously before implementing DataHub, we received a lot of questions. It's kind of, again, some personal experience, but yeah, just receiving a lot of different inquiries about data, needing to reach out to who we thought were the owners, only to be redirected and playing a long game of telephone. And since implementing DataHub, we've mostly found that we don't experience this challenge anymore. A lot of these ad hoc inquiries are down to maybe one at most per day. In terms of documentation, rather than having it in disparate locations and people often searching and asking questions to see where documentation lies, we've had DataHub as a central hub for documentation and for analysts to just look and see what the change log is for this data set. How should I use it? What are the common queries for it? And that's been a big boon for the different analysts and stakeholders across the org. And then again, yeah, just being able to, actually, sorry, this one is a new piece. But this is almost kind of tangential, but we found that it's been extremely helpful. But the presence of lineage has actually enabled our developers to be able to understand their audience as well. So if they want to make a change to their data set, they know who their downstream stakeholders are and who to notify because of the analytics that will be impacted. And that's actually, and from a governance standpoint, been a huge boon for us as well. I know it's kind of tangential to the whole onboarding analyst piece, but this has also been a pretty big impact for us that we experienced here at HashiCorp as well. So just overall, just summarizing it, we just experienced a streamlining of data discovery across the business, both from the analyst standpoint and just trying to understand the data analytics available, but as well as from the developer and administrative perspective of just being able to see from a governance perspective of what's there, who's impacted by this data, et cetera. And then, yeah, just nowhere on time. So here are just a couple next steps. One big thing I wanted to highlight is the enablement piece. So we rolled out DataHub last fall. So it's been around 9 months now. And we've been able to disseminate it out to some of our more technical stakeholders. But one of the big next steps for us is just trying to make that the default platform for default data catalog platform for new employees. As everybody, as we just try to become a more data-driven organization, needs data, needs to understand what data is available. So just working to just bridge the gap between the technical and business holders, to make this something that will be useful for them. And then there's some pieces around security and governance and automation, but for the sake of time, won't get into that too much. And yeah, just some takeaways and just our personal wish list here at HashiCorp. A big one is, again, enablement, just making sure that we understand our audience as we develop and roll out the tool. I think there are just different ways that we could have done this a little bit better to make the adoption more widespread from the get-go. But yeah, big part of that is just understanding who our stakeholders are. And then another takeaway was just learning to lean on the DataHub community a lot. I wish I had known this before, understanding how active the DataHub community was, and since learning about that has been extremely helpful. And then yeah, just a couple of just wish list items of just development in the future, just continued development of integrations, as well as just platform updates. Yeah, just for the sake of time, I won't get too much into that. But yeah, that's how we've adopted DataHub here at HashiCorp to just try to empower our analysts to self-service data discovery. Yeah, we're looking forward to just continuing to grow it across the business.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Nathan. There's a ton of love for you in chat, so I definitely recommend taking a look there. I'm blown away by what y'all done, and I was in that same position and a couple roles ago, and just kind of like the sheer pain of long onboarding windows, but then too just kind of the endless deluge of ad hoc questions. Blown away that you're down to near zero. My goodness, that is truly the dream. So there's plenty, I'm sure there's plenty of folks that would love to learn from you or connect with you. So we will stick around. If there's any questions, folks can come off of mute, jump in, put them in chat, whatever you'd like to do. But otherwise, thanks everybody for joining. Wonderful town hall. Happy summer. Happy winter to folks in the Southern Hemisphere. And we'll see you in Slack. But like I said, we'll stick around for a few minutes if anybody has outstanding questions. And if anybody wants to see Nelly, I can also bring Nelly to the stage.
Yeah, let's bring Nelly out.
Yeah, we want to get Nelly.
Yeah,
Hey,
Nelly. Oh, yay!
I mean, come on, that's a cute dog, right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Nelly,
Oh,
fun fact, born and raised in Kabul, Afghanistan, has only been stateside for a few weeks.
wow.
When I told my dad that, he said, well, does she speak English? And I said, what? She's a dog. All right. Anyway, I'm going to go hang out with Nelly. Thanks again, Nathan, Francis, really appreciate you. Thanks, Harshal, and thanks to everybody that joined us live. We will see you all at the next one. Adios.
Thanks for having us. Thanks, everyone.